Ukraine, 3 years of resilience and courage, the long road from war to peace. There are 3 years since starting the brutal, illegal Russian aggression in Ukraine. I still remember the faces of the women with their babies, their children, at Syrian border in the very night when the war started. And I'm sure that each Romanian citizen, be it volunteer, be it politician, be it in active forces in Romania, are still remembering those days. Unfortunately, it's not finished, this nightmare, but it's up to us to end it in a just manner. And I must congratulate the Institute for Diplomatic Relations for this initiative. I must thank the main speakers from today, because together we will see, we will analyze the way that being together, being alongside with our Ukrainian friends, Romania, Republic of Moldova, all the countries, allies and partners that are staying together. I would also mention the effort of the civil society that together with the officials managed to provide the necessary help for Ukrainian people and for Ukrainian authorities. Today, the College of the Commissioners is in Kyiv. Today, the leaders from Europe and all around civilized world are holding the summit, including the Romanian president, ad interim, Mr. Bolojan, dedicated to finding the best ways to support Ukrainian cause. Now let me introduce our speakers for today. Mrs. Liliana Popescu-Bărlan, General Director of IDR, Mrs. Ana Cristina Tinca, the State Secretary for Strategic Affairs within Romanian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, His Excellency Ihor Prokopchuk, the Ambassador of the Ukraine in Romania, His Excellency Victor Chirilă, the Ambassador of Republic of Moldova to Romania, Mr. Claudiu de Geratu, National Institute for Study of Totalitarianism of the Romanian Academy, and Mr. George Vișan, Advisor of the Institute. And before offering the floor to Mrs. Liliana Popescu, I would like to offer a moment of remembrance for all the children, for all the women, for all the old people, and all the heroes that sacrificed their lives in this illegal war, illegal aggression committed by the Russian Federation. Please join me. Thank you. Mrs. Popescu, it's been more than 10 years since Ukrainian students were yelling to former President Yanukovych in Vilnius in a quite freezing night, Yanukovych sign, Yanukovych sign. I was there as a journalist, and I do remember they were offering their pens, their pencils, for their president at the time to sign the agreement with the European Union. It didn't happen, but now we have hopes as European Union. It's in Kyiv, and everybody is sending their messages of belonging to European family. Ukrainian people are benefiting on our attention and our support. Once again, congratulations for this initiative, and I hope we will enjoy these 2 hours to analyze what we did together, and of course what we have the obligation, responsibility to do in the next period. My name is Dan Cărbunaru. I'm a journalist, founder of Calea Europeană media platform dedicated to promoting European and Euro-Atlantic values, and it's gonna be my privilege to moderate today's event. Mrs. Popescu, you have the floor.
Dear Deputy Minister, Your Excellencies, dear guests, We gathered here in order to commemorate 3 years since the beginning of the aggression against Ukraine. Romania is firmly condemning the Russian war against Ukraine and firmly asserts its solidarity with the rightful fight of Ukraine for freedom and sovereignty. We Romanians have supported Ukraine since the first days of the Russian invasion in 2022. The Romanian civil society mobilized itself promptly, fully empathizing with the Ukrainian refugees that were trying to escape the war. People acted decisively and generously. The Romanian government has offered its Ukrainian neighbor multidimensional support and aid over the past 3 years in order to limit the impact of the war. From within the European Union and together with the European Union, we organized ourselves to help Ukraine and Ukrainians. Romania has aided the transit of Ukrainian grain and agricultural products by organizing corridors in the Black Sea and on the Danube, as well as on its rail network. We adapted and developed our infrastructure in order to support Ukrainian economy. Romania was the quietest supporter of Ukraine in terms of military disclosure. However, last year, Romania has transferred one of its Patriot long-range anti-craft and anti-ballistic missile to Ukraine in order to deal with Russian attacks against civilian and energy infrastructure. Up until late 2024, more than 10 million Ukrainian people have entered Romanian territory from Ukraine and or via Republic of Moldova. Romania is a transit country for Ukrainian citizens escaping the war. About 180,000 people received temporary protection, applied for asylum, or were granted a form of international protection. The war has transformed the Romanian-Ukrainian relation. The two countries have concluded a security agreement in 2024 and are now negotiating a strategic partnership. The war also transformed the human relationship between Romanians and Ukrainians. We better understand each other, we better know each other, we feel compassion towards the suffering of Ukrainians. We are with you, dear Ukrainian neighbors and friends. Stay alive, stay safe, stay strong. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Director Popescu, for this concentrated evaluation of the efforts that the Romanian government and Romanian citizens made together, offering to all the Ukrainian refugees, but not only, also to Ukrainian people who remain in their country, many of them still fighting against this aggressor. And now let me introduce Mrs. Ana Cristina Tinca, the State Secretary for Strategic Affairs within the Romanian Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Just a few words about herself. She has been the State Secretary for Strategic Affairs since February 2012 last year. With over 20 years of experience, she has held key roles both at MFA headquarters and diplomatic missions abroad. Specialized in international security, she previously served as Director for Security Policy Directorate, coordinating Romania's NATO accession and EU security policies. In Romania's diplomatic service, she was a political advisor and later deputy permanent representative to NATO, contributing to major summit negotiations. Most recently, she focused on regional and Euro-Atlantic security at the Romanian Embassy in Ankara. Mrs. Tinca, you have the floor. Please.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for your. Does it work now? Okay. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure for me to be here, and thank you very much for your presence. Many thanks to the Romanian Diplomatic Institute for this initiative, for hosting us and for bringing us together. As it has already been mentioned here, we mark today a tragic milestone. 3 years since the Russian Federation unleashed its war of aggression against Ukraine, 3 years of unimaginable suffering for the Ukrainian people and unimaginable destructions all over Ukraine, with too many lives shattered in a totally unwanted and unnecessary conflict. I think that it's important that our thoughts go today to all the families who have lost loved ones, to those praying for the safety of their loved ones still fighting the invaders, and to those who have been forced to leave their homes and an entire life behind to seek shelters from the Russian attacks. However, today we also mark 3 years of unwavering Ukrainian resistance and heroism. In mid-January, I visited Kiev, and I was deeply moved by the beauty of the city, but even more so by the dignified way in which the Ukrainians continue with their daily lives, in spite of the fact that they are targeted constantly by Russian drones and missiles. And as we speak, those attacks have not ceased. On the contrary, they have intensified over the last couple of days. I think that today it's extremely important to remember how this war started and to state clearly that the Russian aggression actually did not begin in 2022, but back in 2014. And in fact, it's for 11 years that Russia has employed force to deny the Ukrainian people their European and Euro-Atlantic future. Failing to achieve this goal, Russia launched the violent and brutal war of aggression on February 24, 2022. So let's state it clearly who bears responsibility for this war of aggression. Russia, the Russian Federation, it's the sole responsible. This was an unprovoked attack whose only cause is the imperialist mindset in Russia. The worldview of President Putin is that a country with a bigger military can expand its territory by force and can dictate to smaller nations through coercion. Nothing in Ukraine's domestic or foreign policy actions provoked Russia, and nothing can legitimize the attack on an independent and sovereign state. Nothing can justify the crimes against humanity and the war crimes committed by the Russian forces in and against Ukraine. Today's commemoration takes place in the context of intensified talks aimed at achieving peace in Ukraine. And without speaking, of course, on behalf of Ukraine, I think it's safe to say that nobody more than Ukraine wants peace. And I can only say that nobody wants peace more than Romania or the Republic of Moldova, the neighbors of Ukraine who feel the impact of the war in a very direct manner. And those of you living in Bucharest, in Romania, are very much aware of the multiple ways in which Romania has been impacted by this war. But it has been said here that it is crucial that we achieve a just and lasting peace. And in order to achieve such a peace, it is crucial to show solidarity with Ukraine in this process and to make sure that the final solution will allow Ukraine to achieve a prosperous European future, a right that was earned through the sacrifice of so many Ukrainians. And I think it's also important to be clear about the fact that the process leading to peace in Ukraine is not only about the future of this country. It's about the security of the Black Sea region, it's about European security, and it's about the international rules-based order. It is about not accepting the change of borders by force, and it is about respecting UN Charter and international law. I think that we owe it not only to the Ukrainian citizens, but also to our citizens in terms of securing their future, their freedom, and their security. In Romania, I think there is no doubt in our mind that by supporting Ukraine, we make a necessary investment in our own security. And I think that we are also clear about the fact that unity is essential. And unity is about the political process leading to peace, but unity is also about continuing to support Ukraine in a very practical manner. And unity is also about being strong against the Russian attempts to divide us. I would also like to say that we hear a lot about, pragmatism and principles. And I think that pragmatism and principles do not exclude each other. On the contrary, I think that it is high time to be both pragmatic and principled, and to me, the concept of peace to strength encapsulates perfectly what we want to achieve. To conclude, I would say that Romania's position regarding Ukraine is very much related to where we sit as a neighboring countries, but also related to what we stand for. We need our neighbor to be safe, resilient, democratic, and prosperous, but helping Ukraine is also the right thing to do, honoring again the Ukrainian people, but also our own citizens. For all these reasons, a just and lasting peace is a fundamental objective of Romania's foreign and security policy, and we'll stand by Ukraine until we achieve it. Thank you.
Thank you, State Secretary Inca. And now let me introduce, I think, the special guest today, because he's doing such a good job, and I had the chance to meet His Excellency, the Ambassador of Ukraine to Romania, Mr. Ihor Prokopchuk, in my former capacity as a spokesperson of Romanian government, and as a journalist coming back to Calorocană, I also, together with my colleagues, admired his dedication, his efforts to maintain the Ukrainian cause active in the public sphere and also in permanent contact with Romanian authorities. Before inviting you, Your Excellency, let me say just a few words about your activity to the audience. Ukrainian diplomat currently serving as Ambassador of Ukraine to Romania since May 4th, 2022. He began his diplomatic career in 1992 and has held key positions including Ambassador to Lithuania and Ukraine's permanent representative to international organizations in Vienna from 2010 to 2019, playing a crucial role at the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe. Your Excellency, once again, congratulations for all your effort, and as Mr. President Zelensky said today, we must respect the absolute heroism of Ukrainian people 3 years from the Russian invasion, and indeed you are a model of powerful and concrete European and Euro-Atlantic vision for us. Thank you so much, and you have the floor.
Well, thank you very much for these kind words of introduction. Dear Director General, dear State Secretary, Excellencies, colleagues, ambassadors, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very pleased to take part in this conference dedicated to 3 years of Ukraine's courageous fight against the Russian aggressor. At the outset, I would like to thank General Director of the Diplomatic Institute of Romania, Madam Liliana Popescu-Birlan, and her staff for organizing this event. I want to thank all of you for coming here on this occasion and for staying engaged in our debate and also in the cause of supporting Ukraine. I want to thank all of you for remembering at the start of our today's conference the victims of this war, people who lost their lives because Russia invaded Ukraine. Distinguished State Secretary mentioned in her intervention that, in fact, Russia's armed aggression against Ukraine lasts not only for 3 years now, but 11 years. Indeed, it was in February of 2014 that the military men in green uniforms without identification made their way to the Autonomous Republic of Crimea. And as was mentioned in the introduction, at that time I served as Ukraine's permanent representative at the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe. And that was a format for immediate reaction to the intervention of Russia into the Ukrainian territory. The first special Permanent Council meeting was called upon request of Ukraine for the 3rd of March 2014. It was a reinforced Special Permanent Council meeting with participation of representatives from different capitals from the OSCE participating states. Because of the change of government in Ukraine, I was representing my country in that meeting. And in the discussions that happened on that day between participants, one of the points that was made was that we will not let Russia to create another frozen conflict. In hindsight, I can say that at that point, we simply did not grasp how far Russia was ready to go. It was not about another frozen conflict. They were about expanding their territory. And this was immediately demonstrated in the attempted annexation of the Autonomous Republic of Crimea through a sham referendum called for 18th of March and some papers signed in Kremlin on the 21st of March 2014. Setting the ground for Russia's invasion into the eastern parts of Ukraine in the Donetsk and Lugansk Oblast, and because Russia's maintaining of low-intensity conflict throughout all of these years did not let it achieve its political goals of subjugating Ukraine, it was also a cause for them to launch this all-out invasion. Dear friends, today marks 3 years since Russia launched this war. On February 24, 2022, a militarily strong nuclear power launched an unprovoked all-out war of aggression against a neighboring smaller, independent and democratic state. This started the biggest land war in Europe since World War II. Now for 1,097 days and nights, Russia continues fierce attacks and bombardments, targeting and terrorizing civilian population of Ukraine and making them seek shelter and safety. Every single day, tens of thousands of missiles, bombs, and shells pound Ukrainian territory at the front line and across the country in different cities. Just the night before last, from Saturday to Sunday, 267 attack drones were launched by Russia on targets on the Ukrainian territory. Many of them targeted specifically the Ukrainian capital of Kyiv, such a beautiful and ancient city. This was the biggest drone attack on Ukraine by Russia since they launched an all-out invasion in February of 2022. And this attack comes from Kremlin, who would also claim that they would want to have peace. They continue war, they continue pounding Ukraine, and they go out and claim they want peace. We cannot believe a single word coming from Kremlin. For Russia, this war was a war of choice. It dismissed the efforts on the diplomatic track in the months running up to February 2022. It came up with untenable pretexts for launching the war of aggression, trying to justify this invasion, and also trying to shift responsibility from the aggressor to the victim of the aggression. The list of grave crimes committed by the Russian aggression on the Ukrainian territory is long. Among them, murders, extrajudiciary executions, rapes, kidnappings, forced deportations, destruction of critical civilian infrastructure, just to make life unbearable for the population. The list of heinous crimes runs into tens of thousands, including war crimes, crimes against humanity, and crimes of genocide. As of February this year, the General Prosecutor's Office of Ukraine carries out an investigation into over 156,000 crimes of aggression and war crimes. At least 599 children were killed, and 1,752 children were injured. Nearly 20,000 Ukrainian children were forcibly deported to the Russian Federation, where the Russians are making effort to deprive those children of their Ukrainian identity by changing their names, by changing their metrics. According to the United Nations mission, 95% of Ukrainian prisoners of war were tortured on the territory of Russia when in captivity. Many Ukrainian cities, towns, and settlements have been turned into rubble. And I would like to underline that Russia is in the imperial revisionist mode. And if the aggressor is not stopped now and pushed back from Ukraine, it will aim to advance further. There will be immediate direct military risks to the Republic of Moldova and to the countries of NATO on eastern flank, among them Romania. It cannot be a cause of surprise to anyone that in December 2021, few months before Russia's invasion into Ukraine, Russia demanded withdrawal of NATO infrastructure from Eastern Europe to pre-1997 status. This is what they call their proposal for a security treaty in Europe. Ukrainian armed forces today continue to serve as a shield for Ukraine and for other European nations, for democracy and European values. This shield is a front line of over 1,000 kilometers that is defended by Ukrainian forces. Ukraine needs support and assistance. It does what Ukraine can do, and I can share with you that Ukraine ramped up its defense production. As of 2025, around 40% of the weaponry of Ukrainian armed forces are produced domestically in Ukraine. Ukraine moved to the top position globally in drone production. Drones of various types. Last year, over 1.6 million drones were produced in Ukraine. And yet, we rely strongly on support of our partners, of our allies. The immediate tasks for Ukraine include timely procurement of more necessary weapons, including heavy weaponry. But first and foremost, we need air defense systems, long-range capability, and relevant ammunition. Air defense systems to save lives of Ukrainian civilians and to protect the critical infrastructure of our economy, to continue to maintain the functioning of economy and the country. We need to see further stepping up of sanctions pressure on Russia as another very important track, to deprive it of its revenues that are later used to finance the war against Ukraine. And part of this Ukrainian resilience and also confidence in its victory and the future is the progress that Ukraine is making on the path of integration with the European Union and NATO. You all know the historic decisions that were taken by the European Union granting Ukraine the candidate status, and also decisions on opening the accession negotiations. These were indeed historic milestone decisions. But we look forward to having more speedy progress in integration of our country. This is what Ukrainians are now dying for, too. We also would want to see further progress in Ukraine's integration with NATO, because we do believe that this is the most effective and efficient way to provide for security of Ukraine and Europe. Dear friends, another area that I would like to also focus upon is the topic of reconstruction of Ukraine, as this will be the most ambitious business undertaking not seen in Europe since World War II. I would like to quote a few figures. In February 2024, the damages from Russia's aggression against Ukraine were estimated at $486 billion US. This estimate was made by the World Bank, IMF, the European Commission and the government of Ukraine. A year before that, in February 2023, this estimate was placed at $411 billion. We do not yet have a figure that would reflect the damages in the course of last year, 2024, but definitely the figure rose significantly as Russia continued its massive terror by targeting missiles and attack drones at different kinds of infrastructure across the country. Last year, defense forces of Ukraine shot down 1,310 cruise and ballistic missiles and nearly 8,000 Iranian Shahed attack drones. It is highly important that the international partners of Ukraine stay committed to the reconstruction goals that encompass various areas: infrastructure, economy, social and humanitarian spheres. The sources of funding are foreseen as coming from individual governments and multilateral donor institutions, as well as from private actors. We are grateful to the EU for the first 3 billion euros from G7 loan based on Russian frozen assets. Further steps are needed. Ukraine's firm view is that Russia's frozen assets must be confiscated and directed towards assisting Ukraine as the victim of Russia's aggression. It will be fair in moral terms and fully consistent with the norms of international law. One specific aspect relating to reconstruction and recovery of Ukraine is the task of demining the territory of the country. Currently, Ukraine is one of the most mined countries in the world. Nearly 140,000 square kilometers, or about 25% of the territory of Ukraine, remain potentially contaminated with Russian mines.
Ukraine's losses due to mines and explosive devices amount to $11.2 billion annually. And therefore it is necessary to build a long-term international coalition for mine clearance in Ukraine. Dear friends, a very important topic is peace. And as was mentioned before me by distinguished State Secretary, indeed no other nation wants peace in Ukraine as much as Ukrainians do, because they immensely suffer from Russian war on the Ukrainian territory. To make peace sustainable, it must be a solid, fair and just peace, rooted in international law and respecting Ukraine's independence, sovereignty and territorial integrity within its internationally recognized borders. Peaceful settlement must include solid security guarantees for Ukraine that will serve as a strong and effective deterrence against Russia's repetition of aggression against my country. This matter bears particular significance for Ukraine Ukraine is now a country suffering the Russian aggression, but it is also a country that in 1994 renounced the third largest nuclear armaments stock in the world, receiving at that time a document known as Budapest Memorandum on security assurances to Ukraine as a non-nuclear state, whereby the nuclear states assured Ukraine of respect to its sovereignty and existing borders, the borders at 1994. And also, they assured Ukraine that they would not resort to economic coercion or other kinds of pressure. And therefore now, as we move and wish to see peace reestablished on Ukrainian territory, and having experience of the past, we do expect that the security guarantees granted to Ukraine will be solid, effective, and lasting. As I said, in our view, the most effective way to provide for such a guarantee is to ensure Ukraine's membership in NATO. We do trust that this will greatly strengthen security, as this would deprive the Russians' contentions to the territory of our country, as the country would be without the allies under Article 5. Ukraine would not only be a consumer of what can be provided in terms of security by NATO, but it will be a very significant contributor to NATO security with its combat-hardened troops, with its defense industry, and innovations which are introduced in the defense production complex. Ukraine will be a very strong factor for security, will serve as a very strong factor for security of Europe, faced with continuing revisionist and imperial Russia. We also attach great significance to the principle, nothing about Ukraine without Ukraine, and nothing about Europe without Europe, as indispensable elements of an international effort to restore comprehensive, just and lasting peace in Ukraine. Ukraine and Europe must be at the negotiation table, because it is about our security, about our lives, and about our future. Today, a summit is hosted in Kiev, which is attended by many state leaders who are participating either through their physical presence or by connecting to the summit online. For us, this is very important because it is again the demonstration of strong solidarity with Ukraine and the unity of purpose of how we would want to move together to see peace reestablished in Ukraine and in Europe. There is no doubt for us that a weak agreement will not bring peace. It can only bring a short respite, and then the war would come back, maybe even with bigger force and bigger cruelty. As Russia would turn any such document into Minsk III or Budapest Memorandum 2.0. We're at, indeed, a defining moment. I think for us, such words as strength and unity, justice and international law must be the key words as we search for paths towards peace. I cannot conclude my intervention without expressing my profound gratitude to Romania, to the government of Romania, to the Romanian people for the assistance that was provided to my country and the Ukrainian people, the Ukrainians who found themselves in Romania. This played a very significant role in strengthening Ukraine. This helped a lot in creating these comfortable conditions for Ukrainians here. They felt hospitality, they felt empathy, they felt kindness. And these great traits of the Romanian people were very well exhibited at these extremely painful moments. So I'm profoundly grateful for that. And for me, there is no doubt at all that we must continue to stand together. We must continue to fight for democracy, for our shared values, how we see them, and how we determine them across Europe. Because this is the foundation and the basis for our thriving societies. So thank you so much again for being here, and thank you very much for all the support that you give to Ukraine. Slava Ukraini!
Thank you, Your Excellency. And there is so much suffering for 3 years. Of course, 11 if you count Crimea and illegal annexation. But we are talking about high-scale aggression. There are already 3 years of suffering, and via solidarity we can provide hope not only for Ukrainian people, but also for Europeans now. And indeed, Ukraine is suffering now because it's European and Euro-Atlantic aspirations, and together we can achieve what Ukrainian people are willing, and they are defending their right to choose their path. Thank you once again. And indeed, in this region, we discover ourselves as friends, knowing each other better. Republic of Moldova is one of the friends of Ukraine, and as President Maia Sandu said today, Republic of Moldova is together for good, for peace, and for dignity. I'm very glad that we have here today His Excellency Victor Chirila, the Ambassador of the Republic of Moldova to Romania. His Excellency was appointed as Ambassador in November 2021, and he's a diplomat and foreign policy expert. Before his ambassadorship, Mr. Chirila served as Executive Director of the Foreign Policy Association in Moldova and held positions such as Counselor at the Moldovan Embassy in the United States and Foreign Policy Advisor for the Prime Minister of Moldova. Throughout his tenure, he has been instrumental in strengthening Moldova-Romania relations, focusing on economic cooperation, energy, security, and Moldova's European integration aspirations. Your Excellency, the floor is yours.
Good morning to everybody. It's a sad day, but I would like to thank here Diplomatic Institute for this opportunity to express together with you our solidarity with Ukraine and Ukrainian people. Dear State Secretary, Excellencies, dear friends, dear General Director, Ms. Liliana Popescu. Today we mark 3 years since Russia launched its brutal, unprovoked, illegal war against Ukraine, provoking one of the greatest challenges against security and stability in our region with global effects. In the meantime, we are approaching also 11 years since Russia annexed the Crimean Peninsula, which set the basis for the current war. This means 3 years of death, destructions, and great suffering for the Ukrainian population. 3 years of threat even to the nuclear security, not only of Ukraine, but also of Europe, of the entire world. 3 years of detrimental effects on global food security and the environment. During this time, the world has seen how the Ukrainian people have bravely resisted, demonstrating courage and determination to defend not only their country, but my country as well, Europe as a whole, and peace in the entire world as well. Ladies and gentlemen, the war launched by Putin 3 years ago against Ukraine is also a war against Moldova. Failing to wage kinetic war against us through its proxies, especially from the Transnistrian region, Russia has launched an unprecedented hybrid war against the Republic of Moldova through cyber attacks, fake news, propaganda, subversive actions to destabilize internal order, violation of our airspace with rockets and drones, corrupting the electoral process in the Republic of Moldova. And if Moldova enjoys peace and freedom today, it is first of all thanks to Ukraine's resistance to the barbarity of the Russian army. And for this, we are deeply grateful to Ukraine and its brave people. I have to recognize that the war has caught us unprepared, with a divided society between East and West, a separatist conflict on our territory, with Russian troops east of Dnistru River. We still have 2,000 troops in Russia, in this region, Russian troops. Energy dependence on Russia, an agricultural sector dependent on Russian market as well, and a poorly equipped and unprepared army. Given these circumstances, at that time, Moldova was faced with two options: to resist or to surrender. Moldova chose solidarity with Ukraine, with Europe, with the free world, with democratic world, and to resist, defending its freedom, independence, and democracy. In the first hours of this war, Republic of Moldova and its people opened our borders and our doors to refugees from Ukraine, providing them with the necessary protection and assistance. Since the war started, almost 2 million people, refugees, transited the Republic of Moldova. And we still have on our territory 120,000 people that benefits of our protection and benefit of our health and education services. We decided to free ourselves from energy and economic dependence on Russia. And with the help of Romania, of European Union, of United States, we managed to do so. Because of the help provided by Greece, Bulgaria, and especially Romania, now we can import Russian gas, European gas, directly from European market. Now our electricity system and the Ukrainian system grids are connected with the European grids. We decided to free ourselves from energy and economic dependence on Russia, and now we depend less on the Russian market. More of our agricultural food and products are exported on European market than on Russian market. We decided to strengthen our defense capabilities, and with the help of NATO, with the help of European Union, through European Peace Facility, now we can say that our army is better equipped and ready to defend our freedom and independence. We decided to strengthen and defend our democracy from Russia's subversive interference. And last year, with the help of our Western partners, we managed to organize presidential elections and also to organize a constitutional referendum which enshrined the EU membership in our constitution. Until now, we have resisted, succeeded, because we have had the unwavering support, solidarity of our Western partners, of Romania, the brother state, to which we are linked by language, culture, history, and geography. Ladies and gentlemen, despite all upheavals, despite all challenges, we managed to uphold our democratic values and even to consolidate our democracy and to get closer to European Union. European Union has opened its doors for Republic of Moldova and Ukraine. We became, in a short time, candidate state to membership. And also, European Union gave a green line to our membership aspirations to start negotiations with the European Union. And we hope that in the coming years, we will finalize the membership agreement with the European Union. But for that, we have to pass another test this year. We have to organize parliamentarian elections that will allow us to continue on European path, to strengthen further our democracy and our European aspirations. Ladies and gentlemen, time has come to face up to our shared responsibility, to clearly demonstrate our common political will and to launch a new dynamic in peace settlement, since the war must be stopped. A just peace is more than merely the cessation or the absence of the war. The just peace for Ukraine and for Europe means the security guarantees for Ukraine, means the respect of Ukraine's territorial integrity and sovereignty, means the recovery of population, means respect for the rule of law and of human rights and dignity of Ukrainian people and also Moldovan people as well, means accountability, means justice for the victims and a just peace in line with international law. In conclusion, on behalf of Moldovan government, of Moldovan authorities, I would like to reaffirm Moldova's unwavering support for Ukraine's independence, sovereignty, and territorial integrity within its internationally recognized borders, as well as to our international partners supporting the right of Ukraine for self-defense according to the UN Charter, Article 51, that in fact support the stability in Europe, including the security in Moldova. There can be no free, peaceful, and prosperous Europe without a free, peaceful, and prosperous Ukraine. At the same time, the peace for Ukraine means peace for the entire Black Sea region, for Europe, and for Moldova as well. Glory to Ukraine, glory to its heroes, to Ukrainian people. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Indeed, defending the territory is important, but we also have this challenge to defend our citizens, because the hybrid warfare and the challenges towards the democratic systems, we can see how important it is. Almost in any elections in Europe, we can see foreign interferences and the governments having this challenge to maintain the democratic rights and at the same time to protect the citizens and the public sphere by the foreign interferences. And it's quite a challenge. It reminds us that it's not talking about only defending the borders, but also defending the way of life that us, the Europeans, would like to follow. Let me now introduce Mr. Claudiu Degeratu, National Institute for the Study of Totalitarianism of Romanian Academy, researcher in the Institute. He has a degree in sociology and a doctorate in international relations and European studies. Mr. Degeratu worked in different senior management positions in the Romanian Ministry of Defense, including General Director for Defense Policy and Planning, responsible for NATO and EU policies, and Head of Defense Section in the Romanian Permanent Delegation to NATO headquarters in Brussels. His interests in research are international relations, security studies, NATO and EU, security in the Black Sea area. Mr. Degeratu, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, Madam Secretary of State, Your Excellencies, Madam Director Ileana Popescu, dear all, thank you very much for the invitation and for the honor. Last week I was asked by the journalist many questions, but one very important was about what we shall do in this complex evolution. Seems that for some of the esteemed journalists that there are so many evolutions that we should set up priorities, we should somehow revise or review some of the priorities. My answer was very simple. We should start from what we know from the bilateral agenda, and I think that's the most important reference point for us, for Romania. We still have a lot of things to do in bilateral terms at the regional level, and we should not, let's say, entering in a lot of, let's say, calculations, games, scenarios, when we already have a lot of concrete issues on our bilateral. So I'm going to offer you some of the elements of this more optimistic view on what we should do in the future, together with Ukraine, with our friends from the region and from the Europe. Of course, let's say the celebration is not very happy today, but I think it's also important as a sign of let's say future mobilization for all of us that this Ukrainian resistance is a model and inspiration for everybody. If we want to discuss about the resilience, first we have to learn from Ukraine. And I think this is also important on bilateral terms. Russian unprovoked aggression toward Ukraine has not only inflicted profound hardship, but also has fundamentally transformed the security landscape of Europe. As we reflect on the 3 years since the inception of this conflict, it is crucial to acknowledge the remarkable resilience of the Ukrainian people and the unwavering support that they have received from the international community. Romania emerged as a dedicated partner within this coalition of allies, sometimes more discreetly than we expected, but for sure we resolutely committed to the upholding Ukraine's sovereignty, territorial integrity and aspiration for European integration. For what we know, and I think it's important to extend a little bit this context. It's also important what we experience in Romania, especially the year 2024 marked by complex electoral dynamics in Romania highlights the necessity of transcending political rhetoric to strengthen our bilateral cooperation. While domestic consideration may introduce nuances into our engagement, Romania's strategic interest in supporting Ukraine remains paramount. This commitment is rooted in our shared history, geographical proximity, and common vision for a secure, stable, and prosperous Europe. Adding more to this context, of course, we, at least from my personal view as a researcher, it's also important to pay attention to the President Donald Trump's new administration initiative. We witnessed the launch of a US bid for a bilateral economic agreement with Ukraine, which seems evident that and this is, if we put it in context also, the European reconstruction plan, the main challenge for any cooperation with Ukraine, regardless whether it will be or it is bilateral or multilateral, is the issue of Ukraine's sustainability and economic viability in the post-conflict period. And I think this is important to bring in the same picture both initiatives. While the Europeans have discussed a kind of a Marshall Plan for Ukraine that would provide reconstruction and development, the American side prefer a more pragmatic approach. For Europeans, it is clear, rebuilding Ukraine offers a sustainable and integrated perspective, plus coordination of the European countries that decide to get involved. Reconstruction of Ukraine and for the European Commission, of course, we know that it's a long-term commitment, and this initiative proposes a comprehensive reconstruction effort led by the Ukrainian authorities in partnership with G7, G20 and other financial organizations. Of course, we have, and you know very well, we have 3 pillars of this plan, of the European plan. One is the Ukraine Reconstruction Platform, which is an international coordinated mechanism for managing and financing the reconstruction process. Another one is the Rebuild Ukraine Facility, which is the primary legal instrument through which the European Union will support Ukraine, combining grants and loans. It will be included in the European budget, and also we will ensure the transparency and accountability. And of course, there is an important pillar on the focus on reforms. Investments will be aligned with the European Union policies on the rule of law, the fight against corruption, the digital transition, and environmental protection. As His Excellency Ambassador Prokhopchuk very well highlighted, we are working now only with an estimation of the total cost for Ukraine reconstruction and recovery, which is 486 billion. And of course, that's, let's say, the temporary, provisional estimation. For sure, this will increase every month. In fact, the Russian aggression add more millions and millions of dollars in terms of costs of reconstruction, and for sure we probably at the end of the year will have new figures on that. Speaking about the U.S. initiative, we know that there is a proposal of economic agreement with Ukraine aiming at exploiting the country's natural resources in exchange for continuing financial and military assistance. Of course, there are some information, some details, official or unofficially. We are speaking about the access to mineral resources and other strategic resources. We are speaking about the Reconstruction Investment Fund within this initiative. The proposal includes creating an investment fund focused on Ukraine reconstruction. The US would hold economic and governance rights in this fund, and the Ukraine will contribute through mineral resources. And of course, the financial conditions, which is estimated at around $500 billion in compensations. And this is, of course, it's in ongoing negotiations. We cannot comment more on that, and probably this week we'll have some more details. What is interesting is the level of compensation provided or mentioned by the US side is about $500 billion, but it's close to the World Bank estimate, which is $486 billion for reconstructions. We should put this in the same economic equation. We cannot ignore starting with this initiative, with the US initiatives, probably is the beginning of re-evaluating the impact of both initiatives. We should understand that it's a complex, let's say, initiative which complicates the equation of the reconstruction. The reconstruction itself as a concept for Ukraine will be influenced by both initiatives, European and US. And that's a, let's say, a very, very complex moment when we have to understand the impact on the long term. For instance, the European initiative is a long-term 10-year process. It's a long run, but we don't know what kind of impact will have the US initiative and bilateral agreement with Ukraine. So more or less the conclusion is that in the short time we will probably discuss more about the European strategy on reconstruction, because we have to add more details in order to coordinate somehow this huge amount of financial estimations for both initiatives. So it's adding more complexity to the entire question. Now, speaking about the bilateral and what Romania could do in this context, of course, at least from my perspective, the priority remains the strategic partnership between our countries. I think this is important. We have a political commitment on this, and we have also some, let's say, delayed, calendars, to put it very, very diplomatically, because of the electoral process in Romania, but also because of the evolutions at the international level. Nevertheless, we have to keep in mind at least three important elements of our strategic partnership. One is to expand the economic cooperation at the bilateral level. Another one is the cooperation in terms of defense and security, and also the pillar which will strengthen the European integration and support for Ukraine in their accession process. I think these are the three pillars, and they should be, let's say, included in our partnership developments. Of course, it's not easy during the wartime for Ukraine to manage such a complex project, but at least for Romania, it's very important to somehow to stabilize the view and to somehow to help our decision makers to have a long-term strategy for Ukraine, not only to wait and see some of the evolutions. In economic domain, of course, our cooperation must extend beyond immediate relief and to somehow to develop a long-term development and integration approach. The reconstruction of Ukraine presents a unique opportunity for Romanian business to play a vital role in the rebuilding of critical infrastructures, key sectors, and of course to capitalize on this potential. It's a must. Just to mention some of the areas, one is to enhance the connectivity. Being a neighboring country, I think we proved a lot that we need to do more bridges, more rail connections, more investments in modernizing our, let's say, border cooperation and so on. So enhancing connectivity is a priority. Another one is to promote trade and investment. We need to streamline custom procedures to reduce trade barriers and to create favorable investment climate for both investors, Romanian and Ukrainians. More important than that, of course, is our cooperation in the energy security sector. I think that's a must. Romania, you know very well that recently has launched an important project for Black Sea for extraction of gases, and I think that will bring a lot of opportunities, and we have to somehow to share this expertise and to somehow anticipate all the problems which will add to these developments. In terms of defense and security cooperation, I was one of the promoters after 2014 to put the defense and security cooperation as an important priority in our bilateral agenda, and of course with a special unique focus on trilateral relations with Romania, Republic of Moldova and Ukraine. I think we already have a lot of achievements in this area. I think it's a good model for the region, for the let's say for the stability, and more important than that for the let's say giving a better example for the European defense policies. So it's not just Europeans contributing and assisting some other countries, but also bringing more stability from this trilateral format to European border. It's a real contribution to the European defense. So somehow it's a reference model for the entire region. Speaking more technically, of course, I would like to see more, but of course that's from my, let's say, previous experience to have more dialogue in terms of intelligence sharing for regional security. Being open or being professionally approached or technically at the technical level, it's important to have a common awareness picture of the Black Sea security, of the evolutions, and of course we have to strengthen the cooperations in terms of analysis to counter hybrid threats, disinformation and cyber attacks. Of course, the last December was a good example for Romania that we should learn more from Ukraine. I think Ukraine has more experience in this area, and I hope that we can find a way to share more experience in countering disinformation and cyber attacks, because again, we were not prepared for what we had in December. Just is my opinion. I don't want to involve anybody officially, but it's just my conclusion. From military point of view, of course, the most important, let's say, format is the joint military strategic dialogue with Ukraine, and we know that we are doing this every year between the Chief of Staff, and this is an important part of enhancing not only the dialogue but also to prepare for more interoperability with Ukraine and readiness to respond to some security challenges in the region. Another important issue, which is now let's say somehow neglected, but in 2024-23, let's say the ideas related with promoting the defense industry cooperation between the Ukraine and Romania were important, but probably because of the electoral process now in Romania is not such in our attention. For sure, having or having a more initiative at the European level to develop European defense plans and programs and more financial mechanism will help to develop more dialogue in this area, especially bilateral projects. Again, Ukraine now is in the situation that they have more experience on wartime defense industry. And this is important not only for Romania, but for the entire Europe. So how to develop a wartime defense industry is a new experience. We should have access and to exchange views on this. And it's also, how to say, useful for Romania and other countries. And for a long-term approach on this defense security cooperation, I think the issue of addressing the Black Sea security challenges in the post-conflict era on the long term, it's also an important issue to keep on the agenda. Well, in conclusion, of course, I think already previous speakers highlighted very well this pillar of our strategic partnership in promoting Ukraine accession and candidacy for integration into European Union. So I will not want to develop much on this. Just to say at the end, as a conclusion, that the Romanian-Ukraine partnership is a strategic imperative for regional stability and for European integration. Expanding the economic cooperation, deepening defense and security collaboration, and strengthening European integration can create a more resilient, prosperous and secure future for our countries and the entire European continent. As we navigate the challenges ahead, let us remain guided by our shared values, common interest and unwavering commitment to a whole free and peaceful Europe. Thank you very much for your attention.
The way forward together, Romanians and Ukrainians together. We are getting close to the final part of our meeting, and before introducing the next speaker, I must tell you that I think we will have at least half an hour of discussions. Maybe we will hear your questions or comments on the very useful insights that we had so far. Let me invite now a special guest, expert in issues of war, peace of war, Mr. George Vișan. He's an advisor for the Romanian Diplomatic Institute, specialized in Black Sea security, European security and maritime spaces. Between 2022 and 2024, he has been advisor to the Secretary of State for Strategic Affairs, Mr. Ilian Fota. And now, Mr. Vișan, you have the floor.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Secretary, Madam State Secretary, Your Excellency, Director General, members of the Diplomatic Corps, my dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. Today is a day of remembrance. I recall very vividly the day of February 24, 2022. I was working in the Romanian Foreign Ministry in the Eminescu building, and I still remember the calm determination of our diplomats in safeguarding Romania's interests and helping Ukraine. Also, I recall the efforts made by our partners to reassure us, to reassure Romania's security. Back then, I thought that. I wasn't surprised by the outbreak of the war itself. I was surprised by the timing. Back then I thought that the Russians would invade after the muddy season is over in Ukraine. I was wrong. I also had my reservations about Ukraine's ability to resist. I wasn't doubting the courage and professionalism of the Ukrainian armed forces. I was simply looking at the military imbalance between Russia and Ukraine, and the fact that Russia is a nuclear power. However, after 3 years, Ukraine is still standing and is fighting back. My research, the long road from war to peace, the Russo-Ukrainian war after 3 years, which will be published after this event, looks at the incipient steps recently taken to resolve the conflict. In this paper, I argue that a peace settlement is still far away and remains a challenging policy objective given the power relations and interests of the actors involved. Rushing the process will neither provide for a lasting peace in Ukraine nor contribute to the security of Europe. A peace process does not include all the actors that have a stake in it, will not lead to lasting or legitimate peace. The partial conclusion of my research are the following. The peace process should not be rushed. No artificial deadline should be imposed in order to attain a settlement of the conflict. The peace process should include as many actors as possible that are involved or have been affected by the conflict. The European Union, for example, should be at the table because of a number of assets and leverages that it has. First of all, Ukraine is a candidate country, and as such, the EU must protect her. On the other hand, the EU has provided Ukraine with much more aid, both in practice or pledge, than the United States. Furthermore, Europe should be at the table because Europe's security is at stake. No agreement about Ukraine should be reached without Ukraine's presence or consent. This is a valid point 3 years ago, and is still a valid point. Also, no agreement should be imposed on Ukraine that is not in accordance with its interests. The Russian Federation is the aggressor, and as such, any peace agreement must recognize this status and the historic fact. That means that that the eventual document that will mark the resolution of this conflict should provide for adequate punishment and reconstruction from Russia. Russia should withdraw its forces from the occupied territories, and Ukraine should be restored to its borders before 2014. The fact that the aim of this war has been to affect European security without restoring Ukraine to its internationally recognized borders. We are actually underwriting Russia's point of view regarding both Ukraine's security as well as its vision about European security. Crimea is not just a piece of Ukrainian territory. It's the relevant key for the security of the Black Sea. In the past 11 years, Crimea has been the source of Russian aggression and intervention around the Black Sea as well as in the Mediterranean Sea. Ukraine should receive substantive security guarantees from Europe and the United States. This will ensure in the future that no repetition of this aggression will take place. Any sort of security guarantees offered to Ukraine must include the Republic of Moldova. Moldova, together with Ukraine, are now candidate countries for European membership, and both of them have suffered from Russian interference and Russian aggression. As such, they have to receive security assurances from NATO and from the European Union. The question of Ukraine's natural resources should have been handled with much more discretion by the Trump administration. The issue of this should not be necessarily seen as a source of revenue, but a bona fide from Ukraine that it's interested in not just in its security but also its subsequent development after the conflict is over. Ukraine's eventual NATO membership should not be taken off the table. In many respects, it is much more cheaper to have Ukraine in the alliance than to create a special mechanism for security guarantees or to guarantee Ukraine's security outside of NATO. When I say cheaper, I'm referring not just to financial resources, but to military, political, and political resources. Finally, any sort of agreement should not be seen as rewarding Russia for its aggression against Ukraine. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bishan, for sharing with us the conclusions of your research. And now, as I already announced, we will have some minutes to comment or to receive questions from the audience. Thank you so much for remaining in this format till the end of the event. So, the colleagues from the Institute will provide the microphones. Please, just introduce yourself and...
Yes, thank you. I'm Liz Vartaldun, the ambassador of Norway. Thank you first and foremost to the IDR and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for arranging this very good, dignified and very strong marking of the sad marking of the 3 years of full-scale war in Ukraine. But as has been mentioned, this is actually 11 years since the attempted invasion started in Ukraine. Thank you also very much for the strong messages from the State Secretary Anna Tinka, from my esteemed colleagues Mr. Prokopchuk and Mr. Chirila, and the others. I think that it makes a deep impression for us, and for us it's interesting, to hear the regional voices also. We in Norway also feel very strongly the impact of the war, being a little further away from Ukraine, but we are also a neighbor state of Russia. And we are a staunch supporter, of course, and we will remain so for Ukraine. And referring to the mentioning of the summit taking place in Kiev today, our Prime Minister, Mr. Jonas Gahr Støre, is present there together with other state leaders, and I just can convey from the news that had just been published that in addition to the 155 billion Norwegian kroner that we have committed until 2030, the Prime Minister also announced a 3.5 billion Ukraine investment into the Ukraine defense industry. So this is the news coming out from Kiev at the moment. And also the Prime Minister's message has been very clear that there will be, that Ukraine must be a part of the peace negotiation. Nothing about Ukraine without Ukraine, and also Europe, nothing about Europe without Europe. So I think that we stand together with also like-minded European countries on that. So we need my message is that we simply need more in these testing times, more European cooperation. We thank you very much for the very close cooperation we have with the Romanian authorities, particularly on security and defense, which has increased over the past few years, and we stand ready to increase it even further. So we are ready to continue our support. Slava Ukraini!
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Indeed, it's great news, and the announcement made by the Prime Minister, it's another proof that together, via concrete acts, the solidarity can offer a real and complete help for Ukrainians. Thank you so much.
Hello, my name is Rotaru Marius. I have two short questions for Mr. Prokopchuk. The first one should be related to the proposed victory plan by the Ukrainian president. Is that victory plan, as far as you can tell us, related only to the military side of the conflict, or also has an economic component that should force Russia to give up? And the second question is about the so-called mineral deal, strange mineral deal that is on the news lately. Was this kind of a deal, or some kind of a mineral deal, part of that victory plan? Can you tell us that? No.
Thank you so much. Your Excellency?
Well, thank you very much for this. Thank you very much for this question. The victory plan was the document that was formulated in Ukraine and presented by President Zelensky to the US administration when he visited New York in September of last year. On that trip, he met with the President of the United States of America and also with Donald Trump as the running candidate. And he shared Ukraine's vision of the victory plan. What is the victory plan? This is about making Ukraine strong enough to bring about the end to this war. And the victory plan, it included a few key positions. There were 5 such positions. In fact, the first one was invitation to Ukraine to join NATO. And this is seen as a very important component of the overall effort to support Ukraine, again, to embrace politically Ukraine and also in security terms, and sending a very clear indication to Russia that continuation of its war of aggression against Ukraine would not impede Ukraine's progress towards membership of NATO. This is a decision to be taken solely by Ukraine and NATO allies. And therefore that was number 1 in the victory plan. Another component of the victory plan was investment into Ukrainian defense industry sector. And as my distinguished Norwegian colleague mentioned, the announcement by the Norwegian Prime Minister about the allocation of a significant sum of money to support the defense industry of Ukraine, this is a very good example. Why we see it as important. Last year in 2024, the overall amount of money invested into Ukrainian military production in Ukraine was around 11-12 billion US dollars, whereas the capacity for absorption by the defense industry of Ukraine was estimated at $20 billion. So there is a very significant unexploited potential which can be used to produce the necessary armaments for the Ukrainian armed forces. And actually it was last year that together with our Danish friends we introduced the model whereby they invest or they allocate money to Ukraine to get invested into production, into military production in Ukraine. So this is a very important trait to go forward. And yes, it was also part of this victory plan that there are important minerals deposits in Ukraine, which we see can be developed together with our partners, with our allies. As we move on, large parts of these deposits are also located on the territories occupied by the Russian Federation. And therefore, again, as we move towards the end of the war, and yes, we see that all parts of Ukraine must be deoccupied from the Russian presence. This is the area where we can cooperate in terms of investing, in terms of fostering the economic potential that would be of benefit
to Ukrainian people and also to our partners. So that was part, one of the elements of this plan. As far as the ongoing talks are concerned, well, they're ongoing. You probably read quite a lot about the position of our American friends, why this agreement is good for Ukraine. The position of the Ukrainian president is that we do see what for us is important in this agreement. We do see from our viewpoint what our interest must be included, and that is in particular the issue of security guarantees. We do see that such an agreement should also reflect solid security guarantees for Ukraine. The discussions are ongoing on this front. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Please, any other questions or comments on the topics that we are having today in discussion? Okay, if not, I must thank you once again for the distinguished speakers today, and of course for you who were joining the event. And before thanking you for the trust that I received from the Institute, it is my honor to ask General Director Popescu to present the closing remarks. Thank you.
Thank you. Dear Deputy Minister, Your Excellencies, I think this was a very good event in terms of building solidarity, exchanging viewpoints, showing our position, our positioning, and I think that 3 years after the start of this horrible war may mark the beginning of much stronger action in view of a lasting peace, not only of a short-sighted peace, let me put it like that. So I would like to thank all of you for your participation, and I would like to invite you to stay over a coffee and some snacks and continue the discussions. Thank you very much for your participation.